Hi everybody, welcome to part 3 of animal drawing. So let's start with these heads of these cats. So what I did here is, if you divide this one in 3 parts, you can see that these spaces are even. And again, that's not bad. It can work. You have a lot of cartoons that work in this style, and they do this on purpose. And most of the time, it's really comedy. Think Simpsons or South Park or Rick and Morty. They often have this kind of style of characters. But I like to draw more in this style or this style. And what I did here, if you divide these parts more, you can see that this space is smaller than this space. So this smaller, this is bigger. If we look at this space, and if we also take the head, the top of the head with it, we can see it's 2 small spaces and 1 big. I think it's even small, medium, big. And here I even pushed the shape of the head as well. So here I made this part really small and this part big. So I like to work with small shape, medium shape, and big shape. And I like to play around with it. For example, the small shape in the middle, and then the big shape in the top, and then the middle shape here. So this is more interest or contrast. So try to think about that when you're drawing characters. And again, there's no wrong or right. Only ask yourself, what is your goal? How do you want to draw? What are your favorite cartoons or animations you want to work on? And how did they achieve that? And why did they do it? So here I'm showing it a bit more. Also in this head. So this is more even. This is more pushed. And this is insane. So here, this, like the snowman, it's all even. And here I played around with a big head, small body, and big legs. Maybe you don't like this character, but it's more original, or it's more surprising than this character. It's more generic, it's bland. So this one has a bit more personality. And you can add more personality by it. So think of it as if you were drawing someone you know, and oftentimes we remember someone, oh, because of his big nose did that. There's always something out of proportion at some people. So try to look at that. And here, again, some more. So here, even shapes could work. And here it's more pushed, and here it's pushed until it almost broke. So also, if you're designing a character, try to push it as far as you can, and maybe go over the top and see what happens when you push it too far. Then it's always easier to go back. And in some cases, this is good. And in a lot of things, you see this is the main character, and these are the more side characters. So drawing frogs. Yeah, like I showed in the previous video, starting with the shape. And again, here I also used contrast in shape. And you can also try out sometimes I just take a sketchbook and I try fill a page full with different shapes. Try to make a really complex shape, a simple shape, even more simple shape, and then try to make a character out of it. This would be probably being a real weird frog, but maybe this is his neck or something. So something like this. I don't know. But The point I want to make is that you can use these basic shapes and add construction or 3D to it, and then make a final sketch to create different characters. And play around with big eyes, small eyes, medium eyes, big mouth, um, medium mouth, small mouth. So play around with those proportions. Don't use this size eyes and then this side mouth. It's more interesting if you do something like this: big eyes, small mouth. Think contrast. Penguin, again, using shapes to create different characters, and it also has different proportions. So this, yeah, this is a shape that fits character that's a bit more simple, this character that's maybe a bit more bossy, and this is more the goofy character. So think about shapes to design character. Every shape can have different personality. Style. So again, there's no wrong or right. But in my personal opinion, I always like to draw more in this style. And I do that with certain rules, like straight versus curved, more organic shape, more contrast. And this is using more parallel lines and being a bit more stiff. Um, so ask yourself, what kind of style do you want to draw? And knowing how to draw each of the style can really help you. So sometimes I do have to draw this style for if I'm working somewhere and they want to see some options in a different style, then I do that. So in here you see that more broken down. Here using those parallel lines, and maybe you can take an animal and draw it in your draw your own animal into different styles, in the more TV animation style or the more Disney animation style. So yeah, play around with it and have fun. Again, shapes can create character. So if you, oftentimes a round character is really friendly, and a rectangle or square can be more strong and maybe a bit strong and slower. And a triangle is really fast, and maybe it's dangerous because it's pointy. So so it can have a lot of effect on the personality. So maybe you can make your own line of characters with maybe you take a different character and try that out with those different shapes. Cat. So, and you don't have to be so obvious with the shapes. Again, here I'm showing a bit more about the different, so with the action line and the shapes, and I think I already talked a lot about that. So I want to show the next slide. So this one, and here you can see that I'm using all different shapes. So the square and the round ones and the triangle. So this one, it doesn't have to be the villain, but this one is a bit more mysterious. And this one is strong. It is also friendly because it has some round shapes and friendly eyes. And this one is young and is really round and friendly and cute, because it's also smaller, but also because of the round shapes. So here I use the same technique as the previous slide, but then a bit more subtle. So here with these cavias of guinea pigs is the English term. So I used a circle, square, triangle, the same as with the boar. And this is maybe you can't use this for an animation show because it's too, but then you can adjust it a little bit and then you can draw them in poses. But maybe this is how you could start with drawing a character, and then maybe this is a bit too far, but then you can take it a bit down so that you can move it around, but that it still has this philosophy about the friendly circle behind it. Tangents. So tangents is a line touching but not intersecting another line. So simply put, a tangent is this, so that all these lines come together to this point. And it's very distracting because it pulls our eye to it. And it doesn't look natural, it does look unnatural. And the funny thing is that we humans, we like to connect everything. I think it's better to draw it more like this, so that not so that they're not intersecting. And so let's see, where can I show that more? Here, yeah, here you can really see that. For example, here I push this nose a bit over the cheek, and here it's against, and it's distracting. And here it's the lines coming together to that eye, and here it's loose. And in some cases it can be looking more stylized, but I think you can there are better ways to let something look stylized. And so watch out for that. And another thing about it is if you're drawing a car and there's a tree, so here's also a tangent, and now it's against the tree. If you want to draw, then you can maybe better draw it from the tree, or that it's partially behind the tree like this. So think about tangents. Being aware of them is already a big step. So here I'm showing the, because of this alpaca is fluffy, that you have this fluffy side, and there's this more simple side. So this side is complex or detailed, however you want to call it. And that creates contrast. So having one side is more basic and one side that's more complex. And I put the most important part, for, the most of the time, the part where the head is or something. I put those details because that gets the attention to the head. Beaver drawing. So yeah, using that overlapping shapes. And here I'm also showing, and I think that's the most interesting part of this slide, that here I'm using these shapes with these overlapping balls. So this still looks really stiff, but when you draw lines over it, one side we have this complex side, this side, and then one side we make this more elegant flowing side with these and connect it all with a line. And then later you can add a bit of details. Don't too much, or else it will get detail versus detail. Maybe I want to make one less hair there. So yeah, maybe you can try out again, like I shown before. Maybe you can try that out and try these steps. Draw this character with this in mind, and you will learn a lot from that. So CSI, and I talked a bit about that previously, but I waited for this post to go a bit more depth into it. So C as I. And that's basically because there are 3 main lines. So drawing a character, I use these 3 different lines and use them in contrast. So for example, here you can see here is the I and this is the S. This is the C and this is the S. So using C versus S, or C versus I, S versus C, and S versus I. Don't use C versus C, or C versus C, or S versus S, S versus S, I versus I. Don't do this, do this. Because then you create more interesting shapes. And again, you can use it if you want to have, maybe you want to make some kind of illustrative character. You can make an sort of weird character, but it's more graphic. It's more graphic stylized. But at least, again, there's no wrong or right, but be aware of it, of the differences and the purpose you're making it for. This would be more suited for an icon or logo. And I believe this is more interested for a movie. So drawing the monkey. And again, 2 different styles, iconic versus dynamic. So straight versus straight, simple versus simple, straight versus curved, or actually it's curved versus straight here, and complex versus simple. Again, you do see these animations a lot on TV, and this is what you see more in animated feature. And I believe this is more, you can do more with the emotions of this face. And this is more 2D. And it's more clear. That's why it works better for logos or iconic styles. But this works more if you want to, and also evoke feelings. And if you want to make the audience cry, I think it's easier to do it with this character than with this character. So again, the same pose, same monkey, only 2 different styles. And maybe you can start drawing this character again in these 2 different styles. Or maybe take a character of your own and try to draw it in one of these 2 styles. Here I'm also showing some sketches. So if you're working for an animation movie or something, and the client or your boss asks to come up with different versions, try different sizes. Play around with that. So for example, here this is one size, or this is a head with one body. Again, head with the body, a big head with a small body, and so on. A small snail house, a big snail house, a medium snail house. Play around with those proportions. So try to come up with different proportions to draw your characters. So here, and yeah, I did this on my Instagram for draw this in your style, but that's also something you can also try. And if you make a drawing, you can easily show me the drawing, tag me in it, or email me. I always love to see some versions of people. And try to find a nice contrast in the shapes and push it. For example, here, this one is pushed more than this one. Again, this is not per se wrong, although I even made this cross. But yeah, this one has more to it in my eyes. And this is more iconic, more a logo. And this is more, yeah, push the shapes more. And you can see that here than here. Again, like I earlier told with shapes, play around with shapes. So this is boring. This is better, but this is much better because that's more interesting. And you can even make it more interesting by using different shapes. So and I'm showing that here. So this is again only balls, and then it makes a bit more interesting to use different shapes, but then also use different size. So it's big, small, and medium. Makes it way more interesting. And you can also make maybe the triangle really big, and then you make the let's put the ball here really small, and then make this really wide. Or so that's you can also make a character with that. So that creates more interesting shapes. So the chicken with the different styles. So again, this character is more cartoony or cartoony. It's more stylistic or more iconic. With iconic, I say something like with the logo, and it's more flat. And so using more parallel lines, the same sizes, etc., etc. And you can also see I'm using here these corners to make the character a bit more interesting and more, a bit more advanced. So also shapes like this and that. So play around with those kinds of shapes. And say, so I'm thinking about something, maybe hopefully you won't, that I don't forget, but yeah, they're basically the same character, only this one has a bit more those S shapes, more contrast in the lines, more overlapping lines, more small and big shapes. So there's more contrast here. And this more simple. Again, think about what you want. What is your goal? So again, here's more, so everything is here even shapes here as well. These fingers are all the same size. And here's more, it's more organic and more playing around with different sizes. Here, these round eyes versus more eyes that have some size. So when I'm drawing eyes, I usually start with a ball, but then I'm adding these eyelids here and here. And that's also, if you look at our own eyes, you don't see your whole eyeball, but you see those eyelids there. So this, for me, this is the most simple way to draw an eye. So this elephant. So here I started with a really realistic elephant. And I do that because I don't draw realistically, but you learn a lot from drawing realistic. So go to your favorite search engine and try to draw some different realistic animals. And then you can try to simplify it and create your simplified version of it, like this. So these are the same characters, and for my feeling, the same feeling it made on me, but more cartoony. So these are the steps I took for that, and that is also what I earlier explained. So you can try that out. What also really works is maybe pulling one leg up or something to make the character a bit more interesting. Drawing bears, also the perspective. So what I did here is make this ground plane, something like this, and I have this in mind, so that you have this vanishing point, this ground, but then you can use this big back, belly, and the body, and then the legs, then these legs, then this leg here, and then this tail on the back, and then the head. So again, using this overlapping that I've also shown in the previous part. And oh yeah, that's also interesting to look up the skeletons. So go to internet and look up a skeleton of a bear and study how it's constructed, and you learn a lot from it. And you can use that, for example, if we make this a bit lighter, you can use that construction like here to draw the stick figure pose, and then you can also use that here. So using that simplified skeleton can also work. And here I also looked up at the muscles, and honestly, this muscle exists probably out 3 or 4 muscles, but I pushed them together to one shape, the same as here and the same as here. So that helps creating all these different characters. So here we have this this bear. And put this down. So, and then I just played around with that, what I've learned in the previous post, and drawing some shapes. So here I'm starting with this big shape and this action line, and then this construction on top of it, and trying to have this force and using CSI. All these things comes together. And learning to draw is a bit like fitness. When you're doing fitness, you train one muscle a day, for example. You have the leg day and the back day. And it's the same with drawing. One day you learn CSI, the one day you focus on line of action, and the other day you're focusing on construction. And there's no real order in it. So it's more fun to play around with learning all those different things through each other. So drawing the bird, again, doing a study of the skeleton, and yeah, look at how birds are constructed. And I find it also really interesting to learn about all those things. And that's the fun thing about being an artist. You can research anything. You can search the whole Wikipedia and it's still useful for you. Because we mimic real life, even if we draw in cartoony stuff. So then I have this action line and using the construction again and drawing the character. And it's not that I start or use this always, but sometimes it's good to study, to learn a bit about how it's constructed. Rhythm. I already talked a bit about that, but here in this image, I'm showing it more. So here, this wing, we have this side here, this S side or B side, versus this C line. So it's a simple versus complex. And again, you can see that the bone structure here and there in it. And also the rhythm in the character and how I draw these legs is a simple shape first, and then I draw in all these other parts. But again, here I think in this part it's the most important is the rhythm. So something like this. And that creates a more interesting character. especially with birds that are really have a lot of rhythm in them. Maybe try to draw some birds and try to look for the rhythm. Try and draw. Maybe take a photo and place it in Photoshop or any other software, or just draw it through, and then look for these. So then you see a bird. Then the wings go like this, and his head goes like this, and then his tail goes like this, and then his legs go like this. Try to look for the force, and then you can use that knowledge. You could use that to draw an you can use that to draw a dragon as well. So you can use this knowledge of birds for magical creatures as well, animals. Studying the skeleton of the cat, and here as well, it's good to start with a really realistic cat and then try to make a cartoony version of the skeleton. So basically the shapes are the same, but then simpler, more designed, and more different proportions. Some parts are bigger and the other parts are smaller. Using the construction. So here I'm showing that mask that I also talked about in the previous part. So think of it that you have take these cupcakes out of it. So there's a cupcake out of it, and there's this part then for the eye. So, and then you can put the eyebrow on it and the eyeball in here. And then you see that the hole from the cupcake protects the eye. And you can feel that in your own eye socket as well. So that's often why we have, the nose is often in front of the eye. So drawing dogs. Here I made the comparison between a human leg and a dog leg, and then you can see the dog walk on his toes, and we also walk on our heel, and with the dog it's up, so it's there. And if we draw a human leg, it's more like this. So here, 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 and I find that really fascinating, don't you? So studying those things is really useful. Drawing the fur. So start with construction. And another reason why construction is great is that when you have to draw fur, or also when you have to paint, you can use these lines to draw the fur on top of it, and follow these shapes. And try to find some places where you put detail. You don't want to put detail everywhere. Think of the simple versus complex side. And try to think of that when you're drawing your character. So drawing the kangaroo, and again studying a real kangaroo from the internet, and then use that to create the simplified version of it. Try to break it down in simple shapes, like the head, like we did earlier, and etc. And then you can use it to create your own characters, like a cartoony version of the kangaroo. And here is a snake. Can also be really hard to draw, because it's easy to draw a snake too stiff, too much parallel lines. So that's why I also played around with this pattern. make this big part, small part, medium part, etc. So I play a bit around with those different different size different sides. So let me show how I would do that. So here we have this body, and then we draw in this head like this here, and then drawing in this body here, and like this, and using this construction to make the first part, and then make this part maybe a bit narrower and this part a bit wider, so like this. So let's look at the otter, and here we can see using the skeleton, studying the skeleton of the otter, and using the action line. Also, it's going through the fish, and then here, action line, and here you can see a bit more how my sketches look. And honestly, how I drew these characters is that I started with action line, and then I started really messy. So maybe something like this. Is this what I want to draw? No, maybe this or that. This, and sometimes the sketch almost looks like this. Then I make this layer really light, and then I start drawing more, making more choices. So here. So, and sometimes I first do this, and then later I add the construction on top of that. But I think this is maybe a bit more advanced way of drawing, because then I do think about the construction. So keep practicing drawing that construction, because that definitely helped me. And I also still try to train it. So I think I've even shown one there. The rhino. Let's move this one up. Again, here are some different options, trying some different size. And you can see here, this is more wide, this is more this is more smaller, and this is almost one shape. This is more generic. And also, yeah, what kind of, where are you making this character for? Because this character looks really friendly, and this character looks a bit evil, etc. And maybe this character look a bit dumb, and this one is angry, and maybe this is a mother, etc. So also think about what are your choices for the design and personality. Again, studying the skeleton, and also here you see those backbones, how high they are, because of they have these big muscles in the back. Oh, and this part maybe last. And here you can see that all these mouths are basically the same constructed, but they're all different proportions, like I've shown in an earlier video with the dog. So, and you can start with shapes like this and transform the shapes a bit more so that they're more fitting, like this here. So yeah, so think of that as if you are playing around. So you have this basic shape, and you're transforming that shape a bit more. Maybe you're pulling it a bit or making it a bit more rounder, etc. So play around with that. But first, it's really good to learn with these balls, cylinders, and cube, like I've shown in the first videos. So that was this tutorial, and I hope you liked it. And a great way to learn this is to copy my drawings and take the same steps as I did, and compare if you did it good, if they are close or not. And if they're not close, try to ask yourself what is different, and what do I need to train? What is my weak spot? Be honest to yourself, but also have fun. Don't get frustrated too much. A bit frustration is good because that means you're learning, but keep having fun. Drawing, we all started drawing because it's fun. So don't lose that out of sight. And yeah, it took me, I'm now drawing 20 years or something. So it took me a lot of time. And some people learn it faster, and some people need more time. But if you don't give up and you keep going, you will keep growing as an artist. And I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, let me know. The best way is to post on my Instagram, and then my post, ask a question about drawing, and I will do my best to answer it. And you can also email me or contact me, and I'll try to help. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope to talk to you in a different tutorial as well. Bye.